Welcome to the Fight Failure Podcast. I'm your host, MM. I'm going to be trying to do more of these podcasts at least once a week. No promises, but I definitely think that there are some people who enjoy the podcasts and definitely take advantage of them. And maybe you notice the audio quality isn't ass. I'm actually bringing out the good microphone. And everything's going to sound amazing, hopefully. Definitely will. So today we're going to talk about Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. So the last book I read was The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor, and it was absolutely paradigm shifting because although I was into the think big and the power of positive thinking, there still was some resistance in me to happiness, and by that I mean I didn't see the value in it. And that book completely put that, flipped that around, put it on its head. I'll talk about that some other time, maybe next week's. But today I want to talk about Extreme Ownership, and I'll do them backwards, like from the book I've just read to the older ones. That's just because I want to do the books while they're fresh. And maybe I won't even get around to doing the other ones, but I'll definitely try. Anyway, this book, Extreme Ownership, it's about leadership. And it's about, in other ways, the other things that go into it. So I have the review on Fight Failure, the blog. And I've really gotten into this guy. I watched both of his, Jocko Willink. I watched both of Jocko Willink's appearances on Joe Rogan, on the Joe Rogan Experience, and also his appearance on Tim Ferriss's podcast. And I never listened to Tim Ferriss. Not that I have anything against him. I'll probably get around to reading the 4-hour work week at some point, just for completeness sake in this project of self-development and intellectual exploration of success. But let's get back on track. This book by Jocko Willink, it's really fucking good, man. I mean, it's probably the only book I can think of off the top of my head like this. I mean, the guy's a Navy SEAL. He's probably, borderline psychopath or something. And he goes out there to Ramadi, in Iraq, and leads Task Unit Bruiser and all these Navy SEALs, and they do Navy SEAL stuff and they kill people, and he comes back and he's still really hardcore and he writes this book. But the reason why that's so uncommon is because, the SEALs have this thing where they don't talk at all. Like it's a rule. It's kind of sort of a bragging by don't talking about it kind of thing, and that may sound disrespectful. I don't mean it to be, but like in the old times, in the 70s and stuff, Jocko says they'd say the guys that trained him never talk to people about this kind of stuff, and never talk to especially TV shows and put it out there. But this is a different time, and so you put this stuff out there now, it's to help people. And I think I'll just make that clear, is he's just trying to help people. Definitely, he's a really humble guy, and that's one of the things he says in this book that's very important. And it's hard because just in the little success I've had, it's hard to, people tell you, hey, you need to do this, and your first instinct's always just, hey, fuck you, I don't want to do that. And, constructive criticism is constructive. You got to take it and you just got to roll with it. On a personal note, everything's going great. Definitely don't want to necessarily talk about myself, but everything's going great. Enough tangents. So the big thing about the book is extreme ownership, and by that he means you do not blame anyone but yourself. But let's say you don't get a raise from your boss. You don't get a date with a girl. Let's say any number of things happen. It's because you didn't take the time to build a relationship with your boss. So basically, his big thing is putting everything within your locus of control, even things that other successful people, or at least successful people who've written books, things other people wouldn't put in a book. So what it starts out with is taking extreme ownership of everything that happens to you, of every aspect of what you're doing. You must think about what you have control over and then do everything in your power to exert that control and affect change. And when it comes to things that you have no control over at all, you just have to detach and let them go and forget about it. You can't do anything about it. And when it comes to things you can do things about, you really just have to, as he would say, get after it. You can't just think about it. You can't just think, you have to do something. And that's where the advice he says, relax, look around, and make a call. And of course, training helps in that, and that's why we're doing this. That's why all these books help, is because that is really sort of just training. It's mental training. It's mind training. Listening to this is, in a sense, training, because you're thinking of these things. Every single time you think of your success, every time you think of yourself as in charge, that's a good thing. And I don't know how well off you are, the people listening to this right now. I don't know where you are in your lives, or even in this journey of just learning the methods of success. But not only can you do it, you can crush it. And all it takes is extreme ownership and commitment and knowledge. And that's the thing. He talks about, he doesn't even say this in the book, but he talks about jiu-jitsu. And he says these nerdy kids, they come in and they beat people, 2 times their weight or more because they're smart. And if you're listening to this, you're smart. All you've got to do is put that in the right direction, and you have such an advantage. Even if you're behind in time, in terms of time. Maybe you're a little older than you would like to be to get after these goals. As long as you don't give up and you start, that's what matters. Okay. So let's keep going. Without a team, there can be no leadership. And what is a team? A team is a group of people after the same goal. The same goal. Another little tangent. I just love tangents. Trump and the White House. What's going on now is because they do not have a group of people after the same goals. And of course, this is the infighting you see all over the right. The goal of the left is simple: the destruction of the prevailing culture and the transformation of Western civilization into Marxist utopia. On the right, there are so many competing goals, it's crazy. And the same thing's going on in Trump's White House. You've got McMaster, you've got the cucks, you've got the globalists, you have people who aren't globalists, but maybe they want to be in those circles. Maybe they do not want to be mocked, like Ivanka and Jared. Little weak Jared, but there you go. That's why Trump, he's not failing, but that's why he's floundering. And I've followed the guy since September of 2015. I was one of the first OG Trump supporters. To some people listening to this, if you found this from any other place than Aoli Pera, that's probably a bad thing. Oh no, this guy. But otherwise, I was one of the first. And it's kind of weird because the late converts to anything always are the most fervent. So the people who got on the Trump bandwagon just when it looked like he was going to win, they didn't see any of the potential early on because maybe they lacked vision, or, you know, I'm not going to insult anyone, but maybe they just lacked vision, you know. The thing is, those people are the people who are absolutely the most fervent in, yeah, Trump knows what he's doing. Yeah, definitely. The thing is, I've watched him and I know when things are 4D chess, and sometimes, you know, there has been 4D chess. But it's pretty obvious, and it's obvious because of his energy level and the way he presents himself. It's just the look on his face. But I don't want to, I'm getting sidetracked. Okay. He can fix it. I hope he fixes it. We'll see what happens. But this is about you. This is about your success. And I don't want to waste your time. How do you measure a leader? Well, it's really simple. Success is what makes a good leader. Failure is what makes a bad leader. It's very simple, very direct. You are responsible for any action of your team, good or bad. This means you share credit for the good, and you recognize the people who've done good and praise them. When it comes to the bad things, you accept full responsibility for your team, even if it really, frankly, wasn't your fault. You accept that responsibility. You are the leader. You are responsible for everything. Explaining the mission, setting the tactics, securing resources, persuading people to follow your plan if you need to, and marshaling focus of the people around you to destroy the weaknesses of your team. You train and motivate your underperformers, but if they don't improve, you let them go. Now here's where this comes from, where it originated. And it was because in a test that the Navy SEALs did, in the training challenges in BUD/S, the leaders that took responsibility for what their teams did were the ones that won. And this makes perfect sense from a psychology standpoint. You have a guy up there as the leader who takes full responsibility for everything. What are the other people going to do? They're going to take responsibility themselves. You know, that's the reciprocation that you see anywhere. If you're mad at someone, they're mad at you. You're happy with someone, they kind of feel happy with you. It's not only that, but also the social thing of just, you know, you're a role model. And that's another big part of leadership is you are a role model in every sense. Everything you do, everything you want your team to do, you become a symbol for that. The opposite is also true. If you're the leader and you refuse to take responsibility, your men are going to do the same. And your team's going to fail. So you have to take responsibility, extreme ownership for everything. And now an interesting thing is also in the SEAL training when they swapped out the leader of one of the best teams with the leader of one of the worst teams. The formerly best team became mediocre. They didn't become worst. They didn't become worst because the people in the team itself had learned from the leader and had become better permanently. But the teams that the winning leader went to, and that was the worst team, the previously worst team where the best leader went to lead, they became first. So it is so much the leader. Leadership is the single greatest factor in team performance. Don't blame your team. Now, if substandard performance goes without consequence, it becomes the new standard. As the leader, you must enforce the standards. This doesn't mean that anybody has to be punished. You repeat the task until the higher standard is achieved, and then you just simply maintain that standard. Also, as a role model, you must go beyond this standard. You bring the team together in focus on achieving the mission. And now, if you're one of these people who maybe doesn't even control themselves and you wonder, maybe a little frantically in your mind about leading others, and maybe that sounds funny to you, you gotta think long term, man. We don't have many people with the kind of smarts who would listen to this thing. If I can just get one, really, just one person who reads this blog to also do, frankly, what I'm doing, and try absolutely with everything they have to become the kind of person who can beat back what's going on in the world. That's what I'm doing this for. So I plead with you to not give up and to think of the long term and to think it is absolutely not only possible, it will happen. You will become a great leader, and you will not only bring us and the people that follow you to where we all need to be, but you'll achieve everything you want. You just need to have the knowledge and to get after it. And let's get back to the knowledge part. So leaders must always be seeking improvement. Throw out, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. No, you need to always be trying. You must always be trying better than the baseline. Now, maybe this doesn't apply so much to us, but when it comes to preparing for casualties, you need to have junior leaders ready to take place of the main leader. And I think that in a way kind of applies to us more, because it's going to be about, when it comes to winning this thing, training a whole new host of leaders, and that starts with junior leaders. Everyone who listens to this, who knows what I'm talking about, and knows this ultimate goal of what we're all up against, needs to become the greatest man, the greatest leader they can become, and then train others. All it's going to take, honestly, more than anything else, for the right to win, it's going to take better leaders. I think the base has plenty of talent. Okay, I got a little rambly there, so I cut out a lot of what I was talking about previously, trying to get this thing sort of really focused. I'll leave a lot of the stuff out, just, because I need to get through more books. But the post is there on Fight Failure, so if you want all the little details, I highly recommend you read the post. I recommend you read the book. It's a great book. But let's get to the tactics themselves, the really important stuff, and I'll try to summarize this as quickly as possible and not go on any more tangents. So, first thing you do, the first big tactic is cover and move. Now, in combat, this is a completely different meaning than in life. In combat, you shoot at the enemy, you pin them down while the other guys move. This can be either advancement or retreat, any kind of movement, or flanking. You then, the other guy does the same thing and covers you while you move. Very simple, and it's the ultimate original tactic. When it comes to what you can do, it's basically working together to win. If you're in a corporation and you have other departments or other subsidiary companies, you work together with those companies. You make it happen. You take extreme ownership. You help them out. Then they'll help you out. If they are a component that's absolutely necessary for doing something that you need done, help them out. They might not be fucktards, okay? And even if they are, help them out. Cover and move, work together to win. Simplify is number 2, and I love this one. Scott Adams loves this one. Most successful people, besides the occasional high-level optimizer, loves simplifying. And by the way, if you're someone who wants to be an all-round good high-level person, simplicity is the better thing to do. You see the people who are optimizers, just from what I've noticed, the high-level optimizers are the people who are really, really into one skill or just a couple skills. Now, like someone like Trump, when it comes to persuasion, of course, he's the best at the basics, but he also optimizes into other less common things. Now, that's still probably only 10% addition, but when you get to that level, it's worth it because what he does, it's that important to his skill. But anyway, for you, for everyone, simplification is ultimately foolproof. It's the go-to. So you keep your plans, you keep your orders as simple as possible. You keep your systems as simple as possible. If you're a company, your incentive plan should have only 2 or 3 tiers. It shouldn't have all this complex math. It should be operant conditioning. It should be, if you can get it as simple as push button, get sugar, get food, right? You want it as simple as possible. And you also want to encourage your men to speak up if they do not understand anything. And on a personal note, if you don't understand anything about what you're doing, it's your responsibility to either ask your boss or to find it out yourself. You want to succeed, it's up to you to read the books. Next is prioritize and execute. So you determine your greatest priority for the team, for yourself. You focus your effort or the team effort on it immediately, quickly as possible. There's really no need to waste time unless it is something that requires some forethought. You make a simple plan to execute it. You get after it, knock it the fuck out. You find your next priority and you repeat, and then you just keep going. You want to stay at least 2 or 3 steps ahead of likely problems. Like in combat, maybe you have, obviously before like a big battle, you'll have a fucking tent with medics and stuff set up. Think of any kind of preparations for possible obstacles and, get on that. And definitely have backup plans, So be at least 2 steps ahead of problems, and if you have the time to prepare more, then use your time to prepare more if you have it, definitely. So, but also don't have target fixation. I mean, you're really focused while you're doing all this. You're on your one big priority, but if you have to move on, if the circumstances change, which they're always changing, so you need to take that into account. And if you need to move on, then move on. And don't try to do everything at once. And I mentioned this in the post. Sometimes for tactical reasons, you want to do multiple things, like flood the zone in politics and media. And that's what Bannon had Trump doing for a few months, especially during the campaign. And it was absolutely effective. When you put out so much content, so many scandals, so much anything, the media can't pin you down. And the enemy, in some ways, I would imagine, is the same way. You could flood the zone in that way. But you see, the thing is, it's really just a giant diversion. At the core, you're still doing one big thing. You're still focused, even if you have to divert a decent amount of your energy to giving this illusion or to making a giant mess of attention, you're still laser focused on the inside and with your team goals and everything else. Okay. So next is decentralized command. You let your junior leaders make their own decisions. I mean, you know, people wonder, oh, how do I get my people to care about what they're doing? Well, the simplest way is to let them make their own decisions and involve them in the process. So you as the leader make the big plan. And then you put the people where you think they're most suited. Your junior leaders, they make the details. Or you can involve everybody. It's sort of up in the air. Generally, you want to have, you know, a plan of your own, or at least know who should plan what. Make sure they know their job. Make sure they know you have confidence in them. And I thought this was very interesting. Humans have a hard time leading more than 6 to 10 people, and 4 to 5 people is actually the ideal number for a leader to directly supervise. So as a leader, you want to get down to 4 to 5 people who you talk to, who you really lead, and they do all your work. And of course, it's important to mention now that personnel is policy. And we see that again, not going to get off into a tangent this time. We see that again in our modern government, definitely. And you know, your junior leaders, they shouldn't be allowed to do whatever. You need to tell them their limits and teach them to ask you when they need to go beyond that, because you definitely need to not say something blanket like, hey, never go beyond that. You know, you need to fucking tell them to ask you, you know. And you give them all the important information they need. They give you the same. They send info up the chain. And this is another reason, why it's important for the team to be on the same side. Because otherwise, sometimes that information doesn't make it up the chain if they're competing factions, you know. Oh, and remember, simple orders, because this is a chain, and that's the thing, is you're not micromanaging people. You're dealing directly with not too many people. You should still visit the front. You should still talk to people so that you don't get disconnected from things. But you have to realize that if you don't keep your orders simple, then going through 5 to 10 people before they reach the ground level people, things can get very misconstrued. So there you go. Oh, and also back your men up on their decisions, even if it's a total, fuck up. You back them on their decision as long as what they did made sense in terms of working towards the mission. If they were trying earnestly to achieve the mission and it just didn't work out and it wasn't, butt fuck retarded, then back them up. So sustaining victory, the plan, you get the data, you get all the data. We have all this time. So right now, what are we doing? What am I doing? What are you doing? You're planning for your future success. Step 1, you get the data. You read the books. You listen to this podcast. You read my blog. You read these other very important people like Jocko Willink, like, Dale Carnegie, like all of the persuasion stuff, the, Cialdini stuff. And then purpose, of course, is so important. But you get all that data. You talk to the experts, you read the experts, you get information from anyone who can give you a good input. Then you make your plan, your simple plan. You brief everyone. I mean, if you're not a leader yet, you don't brief everyone on the plan, but this is for leader. You brief everyone on the plan and the details and the contingencies if things go wrong. And then at the end, you tell your men the 3 most important things to remember for the plan. And since I'm doing this now in podcast form and I'm talking to you guys about it, that's a very good tip for you, for your plan. that should pretty much wrap it up. I don't want to keep you guys going. Getting a sore throat from talking so much too. Well, I really wonder how people do it for like 3 hours just talking. Hell, I mean, by the end of doing this, I should be pretty good too. But I hope you got some value out of it. I'm going to edit the shit out of this because there was definitely some tangents. But, it was such a good book. And I didn't cover nearly all of it because I was just rambling. And there's so much material there. And there's even material that I didn't put in there because in the review itself, because it's in my other reviews and materials on Fight Failure. So I didn't put it in the necessary, in the review itself. So I definitely recommend reading Extreme Ownership, and I definitely recommend taking extreme ownership because we're all after these goals, and you absolutely can achieve your goals and get the life you want and beat what we are facing. You just need to take extreme ownership and get the knowledge and then take action. Anyway, this has been the Fight Failure Podcast with be trying to do more of these. Peace out, guys.